Hey guys, welcome to Fearless. My name is Tracy and today we're going to be talking about a topic that has been clouded with so much negativity, and we want to find out more about feminism. So make sure to drop a comment if you have any question, if there are some things that you've heard that you probably might need some information on, make sure to do that. And if you just want to like the video because it didn't work for you, I don't know. All I know is that you are going to enjoy today's episode because I learned so much, which I believe is the importance of this video, which is learning. Okay, so before we get into the video, I want to thank Toboka Coffee House for having us today because yes, this is a beautiful place. As you can see, the ambience is amazing. The coffee is great too. I'm running out of adjectives, but all I know is that this place is great. Thank you so much, Toboka Coffee House. If you see all her social media posts, you'll think Samia hates men, right? We have Samia Nazareth joining us today, and I couldn't have a better guest to start this conversation on feminism, right? You're a proud feminist.
Yes, I am.
But what does feminism mean to you?
So feminism is basically, it was a movement created by women for women. It's all about getting women to have their liberation and freedom. So my definition of feminism doesn't even include equality, because I feel like that word has been distorted by many people who are against feminism to make it seem like what we want is to be men. No. We don't want to be men, but what we want is our differences, like our reproductive differences, our physical differences. We don't want those to be the reasons why we have inequalities. And this manifested itself in many ways. So ending child marriages, FGM, freedom from violence, the ability to go to school and also to work. But something very important is the type of feminism that I ascribe to has inclusivity. So. Okay. Patriarchy doesn't affect, so the fight for feminism is against patriarchy, right? That is the oppressive system that oppresses us. What I find, or what the earlier feminists didn't do, was have inclusivity. So you must include all different types of women. That is on the basis of class, on the basis of gender and sex. Remember that gender and sex is not the same thing, because gender is a social construct. Sex is the organs you're born with at birth. And so we want it to be inclusive because patriarchy doesn't affect women, all women, the same way. So let me use an example of a white woman versus a black woman. The patriarchy affects them differently. Able-bodied women versus disabled women, different. Straight women versus trans women, it's all different. So your feminism, I believe, is not true feminism if it doesn't cater to the needs of all those people. Because we say, okay, fine, Tracy and Samia, because we are able-bodied, we are straight women. To you. So we're able-bodied straight women, right? We will carry certain privileges, meaning, let's say, we have the right to go to work. Even just thinking about our class, like we don't live in adverse poverty. If you need to go to school, there's resources that we have that allow us to be able to go to school, right? There's resources poor girls don't have. And now let's say we belong to the same class, right? And a disabled woman can't access even the buildings for I don't know about your university or mine, but mine was not accessible to disabled women. Okay. So you have the right to go to school, but you can't go to school. Yeah, so it's all about that. There's different aspects of it. So feminism is different in different regions. It's unfair to give it one blanket statement because what we need in Nairobi is very different from what they need in Mandera. Exactly. So that is what feminism is to me.
Okay. I mean, you talked about inclusivity, you talked about all these different things earlier on. And, I can't help but think, what are some of the things that you feel feminists have done wrong to allow people to attack the movement?
The earliest recorded form of feminism was the Liberal Feminist, and that was around the 50s and 60s. That was in the West now, when the civil rights movement was at the peak, and women were given the right to vote, the right to go to school, and white women specifically were like, we don't want to stay home and cook and clean for you, we want to work too. Like when you guys were all fighting in the war, we were basically doing the work that you guys couldn't do, so why can't we work? We want to be paid as well. We want freedom and liberation. But those at that point, it was also the height of the civil rights movement, or about to begin the civil rights movement for black women and black men. So black women and black men were already in a let's speak of black women, not black men. They were having their own issues, but they were already set back because they'd had less rights than the white women. So when white women were saying we want to go to school, black women were like, can we stop being slaves?
Yeah.
Like, can we live in better places and that stuff? So they were falling behind. And that was one of the things that white women at that time, or liberal feminists at that time, failed to acknowledge, that where you are, you have a certain privilege because you're white. I'm black. So you're fighting for the right to go to work. I can barely even get work, or the work that I get is not the same standard as you. So one of the first break-offs from liberal feminism was radical feminism. And that was saying, we don't want a seat at the table. You can't give us a seat at the table and tell us, okay, Tracy, sit here. You come to work, but you won't get high-paying jobs. That's how you know you create glass ceilings. You won't get the high-paying jobs because they say you can give birth. We have to give you maternity leave for 9 months. So you'll probably just be a secretary or a cleaner or make the coffee. You'll never get hired to managerial roles or to the CEO. You tell girls, let's go to school, but they don't have access to pads, so they miss a week off school and they fall behind. So
and that's every single month.
Yes, every single month. So the boys are excelling in school because they don't have a reason why they can't go to school, right? And then I'm thinking of another example to give. I can't really think of one right now, but those were some of the shortcomings. So radical feminists were like, we need institutional change. Feminism is about, patriarchy doesn't only affect us systematically, it's also systemic.
Yes.
Meaning that you can't just change the systems themselves, the institutions in the systems oppress us as well. So that was one of the shortcomings. It wasn't inclusive. It wasn't inclusive of class, it wasn't inclusive of heritage, it wasn't inclusive of gender. Even in that same period of time, like the violence against, it was during the AIDS pandemic in the States, when they thought only men, part of the LGBT community, were the only ones who could get AIDS. So even healthcare. So okay, fine, you guys can come to the same hospitals as us. We've stopped segregation, but you won't receive healthcare because you have HIV and AIDS.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah. That's quite insane. And, just thinking about some of the shortcomings, I'm sure even with the radical wave, right, came a lot of course, backlash, right?
Course, yeah.
And I'm sure you've seen it too, even from your social media. You post something and, of course, many people don't understand what this is because I feel like as much as, yes, this started a while ago, it's still a very relatively new thing because for many people, they say feminism is not an African thing.
Yes.
It's not African. Like, how are you going to say that you're not going to cook, you're not going to clean? That is against our culture, right?
Yes,
What are some of the most outrageous comments you've heard about feminism? Or someone has tweeted you or has, Instagrammed you via DM?
I've gotten those a lot, and it's something that I have a big issue with on my socials. But guys, like, even for this video, if you want to come at me, there's no man that can abuse me, by the way. I'm gonna get you, I'm gonna get you. So some of the outrageous comments I've heard about feminism are that we're witches. I wish though, I wish I could be a witch. I wish I could be a witch and send juju your way, that we are lesbians. Which is, I find that a bit disrespectful to the community as well, because it's basically saying the reason why we want equal rights is because they believe that any woman that's not a lesbian must see a man and be like, oh my God, that's the best thing that's ever happened to us. Right. So the only reason you'd think of being against the norm is for you to not want to be with men. There is also, what else have I heard? I've heard that it's not African. I've also heard, and here I'll give a trigger warning, one of the most outrageous for me is now when men threaten me with physical violence or sexual assault. So they're like, feminists can be raped back into submission, or we can beat you guys into submission, especially when we're at the height of movements, like even here in Nairobi during the My Dress, My Choice march. Yes. So the women came out and they're like, stop stripping us. I don't even know why this was a thing. Please stop stripping us. Stop removing our clothes in public. It's inhumane. It's unfair. You're taking away my agency, my autonomy, my dignity. And the men came and met them with violence, and they're like, Vanguo. Or last year, when there was a lot of femicide happening, there was a girl that was hacked out, outside her university. And then men started printing shirts, written shocker on it with pangas.
I remember that.
Yes. So those are some of the outrageous things you hear, and also the things that make it difficult for us to progress, because remember that our oppressors are men. And that's why they are not really interested in hearing what feminism is, because they realize they're not the victims of the patriarchy.
And it's happened for so long.
Yes, and because it's happened for so long, there are certain benefits they derive from patriarchy: lack of accountability, free labor, the ability to, you know, they beat us and go to the police and you're told, go home. These are marital problems. There's so many, there's free labor that these guys receive, no accountability, just the ability for them to live their lives to their best capacity. And then we are the ones that are facing, you know, all the inequalities. So that is the main reason actually why men refuse to take down the patriarchy, because they lose the benefits that they derive from it.
And I feel like many of them don't acknowledge. It's like they know, yes, we have benefits, but they don't want to acknowledge the fact that, yes, that is true.
By normalizing it. Right. So they're like, as a woman, in our culture, in our religion, in our, what else?
For the longest time, our mothers, our grandmothers did this.
You cook, you clean, you take care of kids. Like biologically, Samia, you can give birth to a child, so of course you should be the one to take care of the child. So they use those systems to oppress us and be like, we've been doing this for so long. Like, why can't you just like, now you guys are the ones that are going against the norm. Like, why don't you just keep to the things that have always happened? But you know that the gatekeepers and creators of culture, religion, the law are all men. So of course they created systems that would benefit them.
I mean, if I was there too, and I had the opportunity to create systems for my people, my friends, I would do the same thing. You know what I mean? Exactly. And when we started, you talked about dismantling patriarchy, right? And it might be very, you know? But do you feel like in situations where, for example, two people are married, right? And maybe the woman has that sort of mentality, right? Do you feel like it may be sort of like detrimental to the relationship or the family unit?
I would personally, I say, and I encourage even when I'm teaching young girls, you don't want to marry someone who values you on the basis of the labor that you can give them, who sees Tracy as just a birth giver. Like, to me, that is not what I would want in a marriage. You see, the reason why marriages or the rate of divorce was so low back in the days, one, there was shame associated with a woman leaving. And two, you were raised in religious, cultural, and laws, even laws that would bind you to stay there in a way that it was a shortcoming on your part. From the time you were born until the time you got married, you either belonged to your father, you belonged to that family unit, or you belonged to the marriage. Meaning, as you are born, baby Tracy is born, she is being groomed into being a wife, right? And I would not want, and this is what I was saying earlier, I would not want to be with someone who values me on that only basis. Yes, so I was not born to take care of a man. That is not what women are born for, and we need to let go of that. That is the reason why the marriages fail. You'll hear a lot of men saying, oh, you know, she cooked for me, she took care of the kids for me, she did this. Boy, you can't cook, you can't clean.
I remember listening to Chimamanda Ngozi, and she was saying, is it that women were born with a cooking gene?
No.
We're not.
Yeah,
you know?
There's actually a study in psychology, and I remember I was telling you earlier about gender and sex, how gender is a social construct. Tracy, if you were born and put in this closed room for maybe 10 years, never taught that you should wear pink, never taught that girls play with dolls and girls play with cooking utensils and they sit in the kitchen and cook. You would not know what it's like after you're released from 10 years, knowing that a girl is supposed to cook, a girl is supposed to clean, you would never know those things. You're taught from the time you're born. Remember your earlier question, your first question was, what is my definition of feminism? Now, that thing, my definition has evolved through learning new things and different experiences, because I always say feminism is an experience, and that's why men can't be feminists, because you don't experience what it is like to live as a woman. The things that we are so adamantly fighting for have to be experienced. We experience sexual assault. And trigger warning, I always tell my sister, I'm like, today I've said I've not experienced this type of sexual assault. Even as I say it right now, do you know that I could experience it when I leave? I could experience it at home. I could experience it when I'm going to sleep. We never rest.
And how many times as women, right, you even do something as simple as going to the shop, and you second guess what you're wearing.
Yes.
You're like, if I go out like this, then if my legs are like this and there's Wuchi or someone who'll pick on me or make some weird comments.
Even the shopkeeper, like you could be paying him and he pulls you into, for us, there is always an impending doom of sexual assault towards us. I was telling my sister, even when you go to sleep, you could be woken up by robbers and they rape you. Like, it's never, I always say, I've never been raped yet. Because until the day I die, and they rape our dead bodies too, until the day I die, I have that is always something that could possibly happen to me. So earlier you were asking about choice feminism, or what you were referring to was choice feminism. And you know, so I'll explain it just now. So you were asking, or when you asked me earlier, what is feminism to you? Almost 5 years ago, before I had all these interactions, I'd have said it's the ability for women to have equal rights, equal to men also. Like, we'll also talk about men's rights. Like, we understand that there's certain things under patriarchy that affect them. And you know, their choice. So it's my choice if I want to stay home and I want to work. It's my choice. I mean, if I want to stay home and take care of children, or if I want to go to work, or if I want to go to school, the idea is choice, which is true. Like, choice remains one of the biggest things because it's part of freedom. Remember, I said liberation and freedom are more important when it comes to what feminism is in comparison to equality. However, choice feminism is patriarchy. You can't say, can you imagine a black person saying, a black American saying, I want to be a slave. Like, I choose to be a slave. I feel like that's a good life for me. I want to have a master. I would like to, you know, pick the cotton and be beaten up every day. I don't want my rights. I want to be raped in front of my children and all that stuff. Imagine that. So why do we then say that you would now pick patriarchal norms that were used to oppress you and be like, I choose to be this way? You didn't choose to be that way. Your environmental where you grew up, how you grew up in which environment is what nurtured you to think that it's my choice to, my mom stayed at home and took care of the kids, and you're actually now falling into patriarchal norms thinking that it's your choice, but who is benefiting from it the most? Like, unpaid labor is one of the biggest things feminists are currently fighting for, because you have a maid or a house girl come to your home. She cleans the floor, she cooks for you, you pay her, underpay her, but you pay her. Why is it then thought that women should stay at home and take care of the children, clean the house, cook for your husband, iron his clothes, and they're not paid? Why? Because you still have it here in your head that because she's a woman, that's the work that she should do. Your husband goes out and works the whole day, probably even doing casual labor. He will maybe majengo work. The same work you're going to go and do in your garden, but you do it for free because it's my choice to stay at home. No. Those are also patriarchal shackles that we have to get rid of. I believe that if you're a wife and you're staying at home and you're taking care of your husband and the kids, you should be paid. Live by your staffs, like,
because it is actually a lot of work.
Yes, and last year, December, I did the campaign that I did, Activism and Tea, when I was going to the homes to teach the girls about gender-based violence, and I asked them at the home, what type of chores are you given? And the girls were told, we cook, we clean, we make the beds in the dorms. And I'm like, and the boys, they go out, they feed the cows, they get rid of the shit from the sewage, that type of stuff. And I was like, did you notice that the work that you're given is the work that you'll continue to do throughout your life for free, but the boys are being groomed to do casual labor that they will be paid for? And then these boys don't know how to cook, they don't know how to clean. So in their heads, they know that when they get a wife or when they go to a new home, their mother, their sisters, or their girlfriends are going to be the ones that cook and clean for them. So I remember I was even telling the owners of the home, I'm like, that is one of the things that triggers gender-based violence. You think that when you come home, you're entitled to a made bed. And if it's not made, I'll slap the shit out of you. And that's okay because that is your job. I'm punishing you. So now you can see where I come from with the choice feminism. Yes, you can make that choice, but with the understanding, you have to understand that you're still being shackled by the patriarchy. You're choosing slavery, you're choosing to work for free for the rest of your life. Nobody got time for that.
Yeah. You know, when you're just talking about all these different things that happen, right, and we were talking about inclusivity earlier on, I couldn't help but think about, for example, sex workers.
Yes.
Right? And now it's even becoming worse. You know, you would think it would become better, but now it's even becoming worse. I don't know what's happening, right? I remember watching a documentary on Sierra Leone. Women go missing, sex workers go missing every other day. And it's normal, or it's normal for them to come home and they have bruises all over their body, right? I mean, for women like that, who are, unfortunately, even by other women, regarded as low, in the society, right? How do you think women like that can be helped?
So for me, and I'm so sorry that I even failed to mention it in the beginning, if your feminism does not work to protect sex workers, then it's not feminism, and I will fight you on that. Because those are some of the most oppressed people. So sex work is the oldest work in existence. Like, sex workers have been there, prostitutes, concubines, they've been there since time in so many different cultures, right? The thing with how people regard sex workers here is so detrimental because you believe that because, let's say, I am a sex worker, then consent is not important.
Exactly.
So you think that because first of all, you know that sex workers sell their time, not their bodies. You can't sell your body. You're a human being. That's the same reason we can't sell our organs on the black market. You are a human being. You're not regarded an object. But when we see women, because of these patriarchal and misogynistic norms, we see them as property. And that's why you think that when you go out and you see a sex worker, that's it, even police, like they rape sex workers that work on the streets. If a sex worker is raped and she goes to the police station and she's like, I was raped, they're like, well, you're a prostitute, we're in Himalaya, so like what the fact that, or you'll even see people say things, and I always catch people, why would he cheat or why would he rape a child? Like, there's prostitutes. Excuse me, prostitutes still get to choose who they have sex with. Like, that is their work. Like, respect that they're selling their time and not their bodies. And for me, like, sex work is one of those things that really hurts me because of the way we regard them. I remember when I was telling you there's hierarchies, different women have different privileges. The patriarchy will not affect a white working woman with a CEO job the way it will affect a sex worker. Like, you're almost seen as being nothing.
As we listen to this and as we talk, right, I think every woman can, point out a situation in her life where she
experiences the patriarchy every day.
Every single day. I agree. So what would you say are some of the issues that affect the movement, the feminism movement?
Okay. So my first and biggest issue is, and I wrote an article about it, is the lack of allyship. So remember I told you men can't be feminists because feminism is an experience. What you can be, though, is an ally. But we don't have male allies in Kenya, and we struggle with that a lot. Being that, one, they either don't care, or men, what they love to do is make themselves dangerously relatable. So they'll hear Sam is a feminist, and I experience this with every single man that I interact with because I'm very vocal about my feminism. You know that through my socials. It's the way I conduct myself in my everyday life. Everyone that knows me knows that I'm a feminist. So what do? They're like, I believe in equality. Like, I believe, yeah, girl, get your bag, get this, until you start dating them and you hear some really patriarchal shit like, are you really gonna wear that when you're going out? Like, you're talking to too many men. What about the boys? So the job of a good ally is to amplify our voices. They don't amplify our voices, basically, and you'll see the misogyny, it always jumps out. I remember I was talking about gender-based violence, and one of the guys I was seeing at the time was like, well, there was one time I was out at a club and this girl and this girl was beefing her boyfriend, so he slapped her. And we were just like, well, you provoked it, so, like she could basically fight also, so we didn't see it as a form of violence. Excuse me, are you going to tell me that the slap you can give a man is the same that he can give you? And also the social implications of it. When they try to say, let's include men in gender-based violence, I don't believe that they should be. Why? Because women don't hit men because they're men, but men hit us because we're women. The things that we do don't have the same social implications as them because we don't have that ability to systematically oppress them. They oppress us. Why do men beat us? It's not because we've done something, it's because they have an entitlement to something that they want from us. Even as simple as saying no to a man when you're leaving the club and he decides to kill you at your car. Why do men do that? It's not because they're sick, it's not because they're deranged. No, because they're entitled.
I mean, it's like just listening to that is so insane because I never thought of it like that, right? But you really come to see what else could be the motive. It could be a form
of entitlement. When men say no to us, okay, Fine, we get angry, we can get jealous,
Yeah.
but like, we don't kill them. You know, like there's so many, and I keep saying this, the same things men and women do not have the same social implications, just the same way what a black man does in the United States and the white man does do not have the two different things. The way they will be handled by the police, two different things, even if they've committed the same crime.
Yeah.
Why? Because of systematic and systemic oppression. So then why would we then say that women do the same things as men? It's not the same. It's not the same.
It can never be the same.
And that is now what allies, these fake allies do. They now try to drown out our voices in feminism and be like, oh, let's talk about male victims, let's talk about male survivors.
But it's not about that.
It's not about that. Like, make your own movement, talk about your male survivors. I notice that most men, they don't care about male issues until women talk about their issues. So it's very rare that you'll see men talking about how most of the men I know were sexually assaulted by their house girls when they were children. When you hear them talking about it when you're having drinks, they're all laughing. Wanacheka, they're like, yeah, it was fun. No, men don't consider it assault. Wait till a woman comes, I was raped today. But what about men? You know, men also are raped. Women, 99% of rapes are committed by men, and that's also men on men. Like, men rape other men. Men rape women too. It is the cases of women raping men are very rare. And again, not because of lack of access, but it's not the power dynamic that men have for women when it comes to rape. Like, rape is about power, right?
Just being with you throughout this session, I've learned so many things. You know, there's so many things also I hadn't thought about, right? And I can only imagine the impact that you have on your socials, right?
Yeah.
But other than, you know, social media work, which of course is one of the biggest platforms.
Currently, yeah, there's actually a phase of feminism that was created because of socials. Like, have you guys interacted with feminists on Twitter? Woo,
Yeah.
Jonathan's from Africa. Those guys are crazy, and Gen Z feminists. Those guys are crazy, they'll drag you.
Which is quite important, especially, and you know, it's great that we have such a digital platform where a lot of people can come together without specifically knowing each other and amplifying. You know.
Remember what I was telling you in the beginning, like, feminism is a sisterhood. I don't know the person that's claiming that she's been raped, but I will always take the side of the victim just because false allegations are all less than 1%, you know. But I'll always take the side. I don't know who she is. She says she was hacked. I mean, the family comes and says she was hacked to death. I'm there fighting with you.
Because you also understand that it could happen to you, right?
Yes.
So what are some of the ways that you've been able to educate the people around you, be it men, be it women, be it, you know, young girls? Yeah.
So one, I have a podcast I'm shamelessly plugging.
It's okay.
I have a podcast. It's called Casting with the Feminist Witches. It's a sexual liberation podcast. I'm a strong believer that one of the biggest things, I said earlier, freedom and liberation, sexual liberation is a big thing for the dismantling of patriarchy, because you know, when you think sexual liberation, you think, oh, she wants to wear short skirts, she wants to have sex with many men, like, you know, she wants to try all the positions in the book. Yes, that's what I want to do, but we are so sexualized from the time we're born, like, we're given the notion, by the time you're born, by the time you have your period, you're already a woman. You know, now your job is to take care, like, you're already being groomed to be a sexual and birth giver. Don't you think that if we dismantled that, then eventually we would not be viewed as just, you know, birth givers and sex givers? So I feel like sexual liberation is a big part, and tearing down taboos, giving people sexual reproductive rights, taking away things like FGM that stop women from enjoying sex is a key role in feminism. So I do have a podcast. It's called Casting with the Feminist Witches. I do it with my friend, my bestie from Zambia. So it's an African feminist podcast, and we talk about a lot of topics that are generally taboo when it comes to sex. Things like abortion, we've talked about FGM, we talk about one-night stands, just to try and take away that taboo. And we also do educative things, because many women don't even know that, you know, they believe that sex is done to them, not with them. They don't believe they're active participants in it. So we teach them, you know, how to come, how to, you know, pleasure yourself and that type of stuff.
Right.
I'm also currently in the process of registering my NGO. We'll be called Women Against Patriarchy, WAP. If you didn't think I was gonna do that, I did that shit. And basically it'll be for safeguarding the rights of girls and women. we already started doing some work and some projects from the ending of last year. So we educate, because education we feel is a big, when we went to one of these homes, we were trying to teach them about consent. And I was like, you understand that consent is affirmative, it's enthusiastic, and it's continuous. So mid-sex, if you tell the man to stop and he doesn't stop, then it's rape. All of them were like, what the fuck? But you said yes in the beginning. So in their head,
You can change your mind
yeah,
too.
you can change your mind even at the end, but you know, they were so confused, and to me that was so heartbreaking, because I'm like, these girls would have gone out into the world not knowing that you have agency, you have autonomy. Like,
And it's so many girls who
Yeah.
go out knowing, and that's why even for many women, they realize later in life. A woman is realizing when she's 40 or 50 that she was abused when she was younger.
Yeah, they have no clue that that was abuse, which is so sad. It's so heartbreaking to me. And I believe that an empowered girl is an empowered woman, because if she knows her rights from the beginning, like there's certain things, of course, and I hate to say this, because there's certain situations that if I'm abused, I can't get out of. And even if I know I have the right from freedom from violence, and a man hits me, now what am I supposed to do in that moment? You know. But I believe that girls knowing at that age, when they're growing up from a really tender age, they say from actually between 3 years to 7, when they're getting their most developmental aspects, that's when they should be taught these things. So I believe that that's a really big thing. That's one of the ways that I'm doing education. And then also through my socials, like anyone who knows me knows, every day, all day, morning, evening. Yeah, so those are some of the ways that I've been.
Thank you so much, Samia, because also, you know, you've given me an understanding on, like, you know, the urban view of feminism. We're also going to be going to Mathare because there is a feminist movement called Pussy Power there.
You know, I wanted to get pussy power on my mask. My boss is like, you're not walking into any meetings like that. I'm like, what the fuck?
Yes. So. Yes, so that conversation, that part 2 of feminism is going to come up with Kali from Mathare. It's so exciting.
That's really
yes.
exciting.
And I really love the, you know, it's like what you said, you know, your experiences can be very different. Your experiences can be different, but sometimes you come to realize that you guys are actually fighting for the same thing.
Of course, yeah,
right?
of course, yeah.
Which is also what you'll be able to see. But Samia, thank you so much for making us laugh. Thank you so much for being yourself, which is always unapologetic and, you know, very direct. So I love that conversation, and thank you for what you're doing too, because I believe with education, right, especially, you know, people say knowledge is power, right?
Is power, yes.
It really is, because you can imagine how many women are watching this and really questioning some of the things that they thought were okay.
Yes.
And even for you at home, if you're watching this and you know, you still have more questions, right, you can reach Samia on her page, that is
Samia_Nazareth on Instagram.
And even other than that, there's so many materials that you can read online and educate yourself.
And I really love sharing. I love sharing feminist work, especially contemporary feminist work, because the language that initial feminist theories were written in. Remember what I was telling you about systemic oppression. So yes, they were told, fine, you guys can write literature. And they're put into the system where now that if you don't write the way the white racist men were writing, then your work wasn't considered, yes, it wasn't considered legitimate. When I was reading the feminist theories in law school, I struggled. I couldn't understand what the fuck they were saying. But if you look at the work written by current feminists now, even just the things that people tweet, they write threads on Twitter, so interesting to read, so informative, and even the common Wanjiku can understand. I think is so important, disbursement of information. So that's why I always try to speak as the way I speak. I never try to change my tone, because I'm like, I want everyone to be able to understand.
I mean, how many times have you gone through situations where you didn't understand something for so long because it was put in such a way you never understood, but then, you know, for example, even like when you're younger, some things you'd never understand, but now you're like, aha.
I get it. Why did it take me so long? Because of language. Like, you guys, we need everyone to understand. Like, I feel like being smart is not writing like an old white man. It's writing so that the people you're writing for understand.
Yeah. I mean, like they always say, the burden of the message is from the messenger.
Yes.
Yeah. So even if we're saying the same thing, the way you will say it matters,
Yes.
with how the other person understands it. So thank you so much for watching. Again, thank you so much, Tomoka Coffee House, for having us, for entertaining this conversation. We had many stares,
Yeah, we did.
which I mean, which was guaranteed, right? But yes, we appreciate it. It's beautiful. Love the artwork. I don't know what this is. What could this be?
It's a lion, babe.
This is a lion.
Yes. That's the what is it called, the mane? And then that's the head. This is the mouth.
Never thought of that. I would have never thought of that. So yes, make sure to come here, grab a coffee. It is such a great ambience because there's also not too much happening. I think with coffee houses, you know,
You don't want somewhere loud. You don't want a lot of music as well, because it's distracting. People go to coffee houses to work, to unwind, to sit out traffic. So.
very true, very conducive. You could do your schoolwork, your work. You know, you could have your meetings here as well. We love it here. Thank you so much for watching. This is Fearless.